Hey there. You make it to the edge of night and bring your tired mind with you. The room is dark, the screen glows like a small lantern, and Luoyang waits beyond it. Dusk on old walls, river mist, and peony perfume drifting through a gate that has watched centuries pass. You let your shoulders drop. You probably won't survive this, meaning you won't stay tense forever, and that's the point. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and let me know how your day has really been, your worries, your exhaustion, or even a tiny joy that made you smile. I'm here to truly listen and offer the most sincere, heartfelt advice I can. Now turn off the lights. Take a deep, slow breath. Let your tiredness melt away, and gently close your eyes. Let's drift together into tonight's dreamlike lands. And tomorrow morning, if you still remember, send me a message and tell me what you dreamed. Your feet are already moving, because your body trusts rituals more than your mind does. You arrive at Luoyang at the hour when stone looks kinder, shadows stretch long, edges blur, and even dust seems gentler. The gate rises in front of you, timber dark with age, iron dulled by weather, broad enough to swallow caravans and still have room for history. Figures keep watch, steady and practical, interested only in order. A breeze carries grit from the road and you blink it away, already grateful for the shelter. You tell yourself you're only passing through, and the city quietly disagrees. Inside the walls, the streets carry a mellow end-of-day pulse. Lamps bloom under eaves, small flames cupped against wind. Stalls are closing, cloth folds, knots tighten, brooms gather husks into tidy piles. A pot gives off a last puff of steam before the lid settles. The air is layered, oil smoke, cooked grain, damp earth, and then a sweetness threads through it all. Peonies. Not sharp like fruit, not sugary like candy, but thick and soft, like perfume trapped in fabric. You catch it, and your shoulders drop a fraction, almost against your will. A low table near the road holds shallow trays of petals, their edges bruised from the day's handling. A hand flicks away a torn piece with the calm acceptance of someone who understands that beauty comes with waste. Bundles of stems lie wrapped for carrying, leaves still holding the day's warmth. You follow the scent off the wide road into a narrower lane where the noise drops, as if the city has been wrapped in cloth. Stone drains glisten. A small shrine sits tucked into a corner, incense rising in a thin, steady ribbon. Even your breathing changes here, slower, quieter, like your body remembers how to behave when nothing is demanding applause. A wooden gate appears, plain from the street side, with clean boards and a simple latch. Before you decide whether to knock, it opens with practiced quiet. A household steward guides you in with calm efficiency, the kind that makes you stop apologizing in your head. You cross the threshold, and the air shifts warmer, protected from the lane's draft. The courtyard is a pocket of night made deliberate. A pond holds a slice of sky, dark and glossy, with a single ripple traveling across it as something small turns beneath the surface. Bamboo leaves whisper when they move, dry and soft, like pages turning slowly. Peony beds curve along the stone path, blossoms heavy with layers, petals folded like silk. Some remain open, catching lamplight on their rims. Others gather themselves inward, as if sleep is a duty. The whole place is composed enough that you automatically lower your steps, as if the ground itself prefers quiet. You pass close to one bloom and your sleeve brushes its outer petals. A dusting of pollen transfers to the cloth, golden, immediate, stubborn. You rub at it, and it only smears into a softer shimmer. Peony pollen doesn't leave on request. It clings with gentle, annoying loyalty, like a friend who refuses to let you pretend you were never here. Near the entrance, a basin waits with cool water and a folded cloth. You rinse the road from your hands, and the chill runs up your wrists into your breath. Under the eaves, a low table holds a simple meal, steamed grain, greens dressed with salt and oil, a warm broth carrying ginger's faint heat. You eat slowly, because the courtyard itself seems to insist on it. Beyond the wall, Luoyang continues in distant creaks and bells, but inside, the pond smooths and the lamps sit lower, and your mind has fewer sharp corners. When the household settles, a mat and thin bedding are laid near a screen that blocks the draft. You lie down and feel stored warmth rising from stone into bone. Your thoughts still exist, of course, but here they drift instead of sprint. The peony scent stays in the air without growing louder. The bamboo keeps its whispering, and your eyelids grow heavy. The city can keep turning without you. You do not have to keep up. The last thing you notice before sleep takes you is that faint gold on your sleeve, peony pollen, still insisting you were really here, and stubborn enough to follow you into your dreams. Sleep doesn't end so much as it thins. The courtyard shifts from night to dawn in slow gradients, like ink diluted in water. First you notice temperature, then sound, bamboo leaves rubbing together, a soft footfall on stone, a bird testing its voice and then deciding to be quiet again. You sit up before you fully wake, because the household is already moving and your body wants to cooperate. The mat releases you reluctantly, still holding yesterday's warmth. The sky has turned the pale blue of porcelain, and the courtyard is slick with dew. Every leaf carries a bead of water. The pond looks sharper, as if someone has redrawn its edge overnight, and a low mist hangs just above the stones. Your sleeve falls across your lap and catches the early light, and there it is again. The faint gold dusting from last night. Peony pollen. Still clinging. Still acting like it owns you. You brush at it, and it smears into a softer stain, an unbothered reminder that some things don't leave just because you ask nicely. It's annoying in the gentlest way, which somehow makes it feel like company. In daylight, the peonies are not just fragrance. They are weight and color and texture. Blooms hold dew in their petals, cupping water like tiny bowls. White petals show a blush near the center. Red petals look lacquered. Pink petals glow so softly they seem halfway to fading already. Stems stand firm under the burden, trained to bear beauty without collapsing into drama. A gardener is already in the beds, moving with the calm focus of someone doing sacred chores. No performance, no rushing, just careful actions in a steady order. Fingertips press the soil to judge dampness. Leaves are lifted to inspect the underside. A small beetle is brushed away rather than crushed, simply relocated with patient efficiency. A helper follows with a basket, bamboo ties, a thin knife, a ladle for water. You step onto the path and learn the first lesson of dawn. Stone is treacherous when it is proud of being clean. Your foot skids half a breath, and you correct yourself before you turn the garden into an embarrassing ceremony. You slow down. You place your weight where you mean to place it. The gardeners do not react, which is generous. The garden accepts your steadier pace as if it was what you intended. the morning begins with inspection. Bruised petals are removed with a neat pinch and a clean cut, like trimming frayed thread. A stem that leans too far is guided back and supported with a soft tie. Nothing is taken that doesn't need to be taken. Nothing is forced to look perfect. The goal is health, not performance. Then comes watering, and you discover how easily water becomes harm when it is careless. The ladle pours near the roots, never over the petals. Wet petals bruise, then soften, then invite sickness. The stream is slow enough that the soil drinks instead of panics. You watch the earth darken and settle, and your own breathing follows the same rhythm, slower without effort. The younger plants sit slightly apart, their buds tighter, their stems thinner. Here bamboo ties guide growth, loose enough to allow swelling and movement. Everything about the method assumes change. Nothing is treated as fixed. Even a bloom is managed like a living thing, because it is a living thing, and it refuses to cooperate if treated like decoration. One bud has swollen too fast and begun to split along a seam. The outer petals press against each other, ready to tear. The gardeners handle it with the gentlest intervention. Careful fingertips loosen the outer petals so the flower can open without ripping itself. The motion is slow and exact, like helping a sleepy person sit up without startling them. The tension eases. The petals separate by a fraction. The bud keeps its dignity. Dew stays heavy longer than you expect, and the gardeners watch it the way sailors watch weather. Too much moisture invites mold. Too much shade keeps leaves wet. So they make tiny adjustments, lifting a leaf to let air pass, brushing water from a crowded cluster of petals, shifting a pot a hand's breadth so light reaches the base. These are small preventions, done before trouble becomes loud. You find yourself pulled into the same quiet pattern: step, pause, observe. Touch only when necessity invites you. The courtyard fills with soft sounds, the whisper of bamboo, the occasional drip of dew into soil, the faint scrape of knife against stem, and your thoughts, for once, line up behind them and behave. As the sun climbs, the mist thins. Dew either evaporates or sinks into the earth. The peonies lift themselves and open incrementally, as if each bloom keeps its own schedule and refuses to be hurried. You sit under the eaves and watch the beds from a slight distance, as if you have earned the right to observe without interfering. Your sleeve still bears that faint gold stain, softened now by time and rubbing, and it feels less like a nuisance and more like a quiet badge, proof you stood close enough to see how peace is made. The gardeners continue, unbothered by your watching. Their calm makes a promise without saying it. Beauty is not an accident here, and neither is rest. Both are built, again and again, with hands that know when to touch and when to leave things alone. The dew dries the way a yawn finishes, slowly, with no interest in impressing you. By mid-morning the courtyard stones lose their slick shine, and the peony beds hold their heads a little higher, as if they've completed an important duty and can now simply be beautiful. You rinse your hands at the basin, watching yesterday's road and today's soil swirl away, and you notice the faint gold on your sleeve still refuses to vanish. Peony pollen, stubborn as a tiny oath. The household guides you out through the plain wooden gate and back into Luoyang's lanes, where the city has shifted into its daytime voice. Carts creak. A broom scuffs the ground in patient strokes. Somewhere a hammer taps a rhythm that sounds like work pretending to be music. You walk with your steps smaller than before, partly because the stone is still moist in shaded places, partly because your body has learned that this city rewards slow attention. The Scholar Quarter announces itself without banners. The air changes first. Less smoke, more paper. Less frying oil, more ink's mineral bite. Shops here do not shout. They display. Bundles of bamboo slips sit tied in neat stacks. Paper hangs in pale sheets, fluttering at the edges when wind wanders through the alley. A plank sign bears careful brush marks, black strokes dried to a satin sheen. You pass a courtyard where a table stands under a roofed walkway. A stone ink slab rests on it like a small, dark pond. A hand moves a stick of ink in circles, adding water drop by drop, grinding until the liquid turns glossy and deep. A brush is lifted, tip tested. A sheet is weighted at the corners with smooth stones so it won't curl or leap from a sudden draft. The motion is unhurried but relentless, the way a river shapes stone without ever raising its voice. You are folded into the scene the way you were folded into the peony beds, quietly, with the assumption that you can learn if you stop flailing. A low stool appears. A small cloth is set beside the inkstone, not for ceremony, but for saving paper from careless hands. You sit and feel the peculiar pressure of a place that values precision. Not hostility, just expectation. The kind that makes you sit up straighter. Scrolls and notebooks surround you like a soft wall. Some pages carry dense columns of characters, each stroke controlled, each spacing measured. Others show practiced lines, the same form repeated until the hand remembers it more faithfully than the mind. A few sheets are lighter, almost playful, as if the writer breathed mid-stroke and let the air into the ink. The locals here welcome with permission rather than noise. A cleared corner of table, a shared block of paper, a nod that says you may watch closely. Their world runs on quiet labor, reading until eyes blur, copying until wrists tighten, memorizing until the brain feels overfull. Beneath the calm you sense a thin thread of urgency, held politely in place. You notice the tools before you notice the faces. The brush hairs taper to a point so fine it seems impossible. The paper drinks ink and exposes every hesitation. Even the water used for grinding sits clean and still, because the wrong grit turns a stroke dull. You understand, suddenly, why a scholar's hands look the way they do, careful, spare, trained to avoid accidental force. The problem arrives in the most embarrassing way possible. Your sleeve drifts forward as you lean, and the lingering peony pollen brushes the edge of a fresh sheet. It leaves a faint smear, not bright gold but a dull shadow that catches the light at the wrong angle. You freeze, as if stillness might rewind time. It does not. No one performs outrage. The mistake is treated as a thing that exists, and therefore a thing that can be handled. A pinch of fine sand is sprinkled, then lifted away, absorbing the oily trace. A clean corner of cloth blots once only, because rubbing would spread the stain into a wider shame. The sheet is set aside to dry. You are given another, with the calm message that learning includes leaving marks. You tuck your sleeve back, suddenly humbled by your own fabric. The peony courts taught you to touch lightly, but paper demands an even stricter gentleness. Flowers forgive, paper remembers. You move more carefully now, letting your elbows stay close, letting your hands hover rather than land. As the afternoon stretches, the quarter's deeper rhythms reveal themselves. Students practice with the steady desperation of people building a future from ink. Senior scholars move like slow planets, their presence quiet but heavy, drawing attention without calling for it. Couriers pass through with sealed packets, and you sense that words travel here the way goods travel at the docks, bundled, protected, delivered with care. Your eyes soften with fatigue. The ink smell becomes soothing rather than sharp. Your breathing slows into the pace of the brush's return to the stone. Dip, lift, touch, withdraw. The city beyond this courtyard remains busy, but here the noise is filtered into a low hum, like wind behind a screen. When you finally stand, your legs complain softly, and you feel oddly grateful. You leave with your hands cleaner than they were, your sleeves still faintly dusted, and your mind carrying one new lesson. In Luoyang, even rest is a craft, and the scholars practice it by making their thoughts move carefully, one stroke at a time. You step back into the lane with the ink smell still clinging to your fingers in a way that feels oddly intimate, like the city has signed its name on you in a script you can't yet read. The light has shifted, no longer the pearly softness of morning, not yet the syrupy gold of late day. Luoyang hums around you with a careful confidence, and your body moves through it with fewer sharp motions, as if you've finally accepted that suddenness is not required to be alive. A narrow street slopes toward water. You know it before you see it, because the air becomes cooler, heavier, threaded with damp reeds and river mud warmed by sun. The scholar quarter's paper-dry neatness fades behind you, replaced by a softer disorder, coiled ropes, stacked poles, bundles wrapped in oiled cloth. The ground darkens near the bank where the luo breathes against stone. You hear it, a low, continuous sound that isn't loud, but never stops, and somehow that steadiness makes your mind feel less obligated to keep talking. A riverboat waits low in the water, the kind that doesn't pretend to be grand. Its boards are worn smooth where hands have gripped them for years. The roof is simple, bamboo and thatch, enough shade to keep sun from turning every thought into a headache. A few baskets sit near the middle, covered with cloth to protect their contents from spray. The boat rocks gently even while tied, as if practicing patience. You step down onto the plank and your balance does that small, humiliating wobble, just enough to remind you that land has been spoiling you with stability. Your foot finds the board, your weight shifts, and the boat answers with a slow tilt. Not angry, not dramatic, just honest. You steady yourself with a hand on the roof post and tell yourself you meant to move like that, because you are a person with dignity and not a baby deer learning gravity. The river does not care about your self-image. It rocks you anyway. The locals on board treat your clumsy paws as normal, which is the kindest kind of welcome. They move around you without bumping, shifting their weight in a way that keeps the boat calm. You watch them and realize they do not stand so much as they agree with the boat. Knees loose, feet placed like commas, not exclamation points. They have been taught by water and have listened. The rope is loosened. The boat slips away from the bank as if it has been waiting for permission all day. The city recedes in layers, first the bright market edges, then the stone steps, then the walls that hold Luoyang's shape. The river opens in front of you, reflecting sky in broken pieces. Small ripples travel outward from the bow, fanning like pages being turned. Reed banks line the edge, green and pale gold, whispering in the breeze. Birds lift and settle, their movement brief and precise. Farther out, the water deepens to a darker tone, and the boat's rocking becomes steadier, more predictable. You breathe with it without meaning to. Your thoughts, those stubborn little creatures, slow down when there's a rhythm bigger than them. Stone bridges appear ahead, arching over the Luo-like calm shoulders. Their reflections tremble in the current, forming circles that almost close and then break apart again. The boat passes under one bridge and the shade cools your face. For a moment the sound changes, water echoing under stone, oars dipping with a softer slap, and it feels like the world has been wrapped in a blanket. A basket near your knee gives off a faint scent of dried herbs. Another carries rolled paper sealed in cloth, the corners guarded from damp. You notice how everyone treats these bundles the way the peony gardeners treat blossoms, not precious in a fragile way, but protected with practiced care. The river is gentle until it isn't. People who travel it do not gamble with. Probably fine. You run a thumb along your sleeve, and there it is again, peony pollen, still faintly staining the cloth in a soft gold haze. It looks almost poetic in this light, which is unfair, because it was a nuisance 2 sections ago. Now it feels like a private joke shared between you and Luoyang. You can wash, you can scrub, you can pretend you're leaving, and still the city clings. The scholars on board do not speak to you in words. There's no need. Their guidance comes through motion. A hand places a weight on a cloth covering so wind won't lift it. A foot shifts to counter the boat's tilt. A pole is moved to a different side so the bow aligns with the current. You learn the grammar of river travel by watching. Small changes, constant attention, no wasted force. For a while, the Luo is all softness. Water sliding. Reed shadows. The distant city becoming a low silhouette. You begin to think you've mastered it, meaning you begin to think the river owes you predictability, right on schedule. Then the boat slows. Not dramatically, not with a jolt. Just a subtle thickening of resistance, as if the water has turned more thoughtful. The oar's dip changes angle. The bow drifts half a hand's width off the line it was following. One of the locals leans forward, eyes scanning the surface where the current looks slightly different. Too smooth in one patch, too busy in another. A sandbar. A shallow shelf. The kind of problem that is small until it becomes large and embarrassing. The boat brushes something beneath the surface with the softest shudder. Your stomach tightens anyway, because your brain loves drama even when the world is trying to be reasonable. You imagine the paper bundles getting damp, the ink bleeding, your day collapsing into soggy chaos. Your shoulders tense, and you catch yourself doing it, because you've been learning. You loosen again. You let the locals lead. A pole is set carefully into the riverbed. Not stabbed, placed. Pressure is applied slowly until the boat responds. The movement is controlled, like guiding a heavy door that doesn't like to be rushed. You shift your weight instinctively to help, then stop, because instinct is not always helpful. You watch first. Then, when the rhythm is clear, you mirror it, knees loose, feet steady, weight moving in agreement with the boat. You are given a task without ceremony. Hold the cloth down over the paper bundles so a passing breeze can't lift it. It's almost insulting in its simplicity, which makes it perfect. You press your palm gently on the folded fabric, feeling the coolness of wrapped paper beneath. You stay still. You do not overhelp. You allow yourself to be useful in the smallest way, which is sometimes the hardest way for your ego. The pole presses again. The boat slides, inching over the shallow shelf. The water's surface changes, and the resistance releases like a clenched fist opening. The bow realigns with the current. The ripples return to their normal pattern, and the entire problem evaporates into the river behind you as if it never happened. Your body exhales a fraction late. Typical. The scholars continue as if nothing worthy of panic occurred, which, to be fair, nothing did. You look at the bundles, safe and dry, and feel a quiet respect for the kind of competence that never raises its voice. The river has offered its lesson. It is calm, but it is not obliged to make things easy. The people who thrive here do not fight it. They listen, adjust, and move on. As the boat glides forward, you catch a faint metallic scent riding the breeze, something like warm stone and old fire, carried from somewhere deeper in the city. Bronze. Not yet a destination, just a hint. Luoyang is already setting up your next obsession. For now, you let the boat carry you through reed shadows and under another stone arch, and you watch the river write its continuous, silent script, one ripple, one correction, one patient breath at a time. The river keeps sliding under you, steady and indifferent, and that steadiness makes the dock feel louder the moment it returns. The boat noses towards stone steps darkened by old water lines. Reed shadows give way to clutter, poles stacked in bundles, rope coils and patient spirals, baskets sweating faint moisture through their weave. A final push of the pole brings the hull in. The bow meets stone with a soft thud. Hands move at once. Knots loosen, then reappear in a different place, because dock work assumes the world will steal your cargo the second you stop paying attention. You step onto the plank with your knees loose the way water taught you, and you still wobble a fraction. Stone feels stable and slightly offended that you ever trusted floating. Your sleeve swings, and the faint gold haze of peony pollen flashes in the light. Still there. Still insisting you belong to a garden before you belong to a boat. Dockside life has its own rhythm. In the streets, people weave around each other. Here, people weave through timing. A shoulder dips so another can pass with a load. A hand reaches without looking and finds a rope end as if it has been waiting for that exact palm. Feet land on dry stone without hesitation, avoiding slick patches by memory alone. Bundles come off the boat, wrapped paper, herb baskets, small crates bound with reed cord. A worker lifts one corner, judges weight, and shifts it into shade. Another throws a cloth over a stack like a small roof. They do this without theatrics. It's simply the everyday respect of people who know moisture ruins work. The air is river wet, mud, algae, sun-warmed stone, threaded with cooking smoke from nearby stalls. Something fried hisses softly. A kettle steams at the dock's edge, and the sound of boiling water cuts cleanly through the heavier noise. You keep to the side at first, not out of shyness, but because docks punish wandering bodies. A careless step becomes someone's dropped crate, someone's bruised shin. So you watch. You learn where loads pass, where carts pivot, where rope lines cross like quiet boundaries. A clerk sits lone near stacked boards, writing marks on thin slips and tying them to bundles. The brush moves fast but controlled. Even here, paperwork tries to be neat, because the wrong mark means the wrong person waits and the wrong basket sits in sun. Luoyang folds you in the way it always does, not with fanfare, but with a place to stand and a small job that matters. A light bundle is nudged toward you, paper sealed in cloth. Your task is simple, Keep it out of spray while the rest is shifted. You tuck it under the nearest cover and press an edge down with your fingertips. Human paperweight again. Your ego tries to complain, then remembers you're here to learn and decides to be useful instead. The dock's rhythm continues: lift, step, set, tighten, pull, coil, until a rope squeals short and sharp. One heavier crate is being hoisted, and its binding has shifted. The crate tilts a fraction, just enough to make your stomach do that useless little jump. No one panics. Two hands slide under the crate's lip to steady it. Another hand feeds out a thicker rope, loops it cleanly, and cinches a knot that looks older than your worries. The crate settles. The moment closes as quietly as it opened. Then the river adds a footnote. A passing boat upstream sends a lazy wake toward the steps. You see the ripple line approach, small, persistent, and the moored hull tugs against its rope. The plank flexes. Water slaps stone with a wet sound that is not nearly as innocent as it pretends to be. The cloth cover over your bundle flutters. A corner lifts. Damp fabric has no loyalty. A thin fan of droplets flicks up from the step edge, and narrow is all it needs. You move before you overthink it. You pull the cloth down and tuck it under the bundle, making a tighter wrap that can't lift so easily. Your body leans forward as a shield, ridiculous and effective. Cool dots of water land on your forearm, but the bundle stays dry. The wake passes, the hull settles, and the dock returns to its cadence. Nearby, someone adjusts the mooring line, adding a second loop around a post. The rope stops squealing. The plank stops flexing. Stability isn't a gift here. It's something people keep building, quietly, all day long. Beyond the dock, roof lines stack into the distance under a thin haze. Woven into that haze is the metallic warmth you noticed earlier, faint but insistent, brown smoke. Not thick enough to sting, just present enough to pull your attention like a finger tapping your shoulder. Your sleeve brushes your side as you straighten, and the peony pollen glints again, stubborn and faint. Garden dust on a dock. Ink smells still hiding in your nails. River damp cooling your skin. You've collected the city in layers, and Luoyang seems pleased to keep adding. When the bundle under your care is finally lifted and carried away, your hands feel briefly empty. The dock continues without needing you, exactly as it should. You follow the flow toward the streets again, guided by that bronze-scented wind and the steady, practical heartbeat of work behind you. You follow that warm metallic thread the way you followed peony perfume yesterday, except this time it doesn't feel like a flower trying to charm you. It feels like heat making a promise. The lanes narrow again, and the air thickens. Smoke sits in it, not choking, just constant, the way a long day sits in your shoulders. Walls here wear soot like a second skin. Roof tiles have that dull sheen of places that spend their lives near fire. The foundry quarter announces itself with sound before sight. Not loud, exactly, more like persistent. A hammer's tap. The rasp of a file. The exhale of bellows. A deep, low hum that seems to come from the ground itself, as if the city's bones are warm. You pass a yard where clay sits piled under wet cloth to keep it workable. Nearby, stacks of charcoal wait like blackened loaves. On a rack, simple tools hang in deliberate order: tongs, ladles, scrapers, molds, clamps. Everything looks used and cared for, which is the most honest form of beauty. Someone guides you in without ceremony. An open gate, a clear path, a subtle hand motion that means, step here, not there. Because your skin is not meant to test how serious fire can be. You obey, because you've already learned that Luoyang prefers you alive and moderately humble. Inside, the heat hits you in layers. First the surface warmth on your face, then the deeper pressure in your chest, like breathing through sunlit cloth. The air tastes faintly mineral, like stone dust, and underneath that is the richer scent, metal waking up. It's not a clean smell. It's alive, slightly bitter, threaded with smoke and sweat. A furnace mouth glows, steady orange, the color of late sunset trapped in a box. The bellows breathe, and with each push the glow brightens, almost pleased with itself. You keep your hands close to your body, because every instinct you have wants to reach out and touch the interesting thing, and every sensible part of you remembers that interesting is not the same as safe. Along one wall, molds rest like sleeping animals. Some are simple, small vessels, hooks, fittings. Others are elaborate blocks of clay fitted together in sections, their seams tight and purposeful. You can see impressions carved into the inner surfaces where patterns have been pressed. Spirals, lines, raised bosses that will become ornament once the metal fills the void. A tray holds lumps of metal, copper rich and reddish, tin paler, and other pieces that catch the light in dull gray. You don't need a lecture to understand the idea. Bronze is not one thing but a careful agreement between ingredients. The locals move those pieces like cooks measuring salt, not like magicians waving secrets. The message is quiet and clear. The wonder comes from control, not from mystery. In a corner, a model sits half buried in sand, what looks like a positive shape, the body of a vessel before it becomes the empty space inside a mold. Clay is pressed, smoothed, scraped. Edges are sharpened. Details are coaxed out with tools small enough to feel insulting. You watch hands work the way river hands work. No wasted motion, no sudden force. They guide you closer to a table where a mold is being prepared, and you understand immediately why the air smells like damp earth under heat. Clay needs moisture to behave, but not so much it collapses. It's a balancing act that feels familiar now, like watering peonies at the root, like adding water drop by drop to grinding. Everything in Luoyang seems to be about not overdoing it, which is unfortunate if you enjoy dramatic gestures. You lean in, fascinated, and your sleeve swings forward. That faint gold peony dust, still stubborn, still present, hovers dangerously close to the clay's surface. Your body freezes mid-breath. The idea of scattering pollen into a mold feels ridiculous, but the foundry's quiet discipline makes it suddenly feel like a real offense. Not moral, just practical. Foreign particles in clay can become weak points. Weak points become cracks. Cracks become ruined castings. Ruined castings become someone's wasted day. A hand reaches out, not to scold, just to solve. Your sleeve is gently caught and folded back. A strip of cloth is wrapped around your forearm, pinning fabric close so it can't betray you again. It's done with the same calm care used to tie a young peony stem upright. You feel a pulse of gratitude and a small sting of embarrassment, which is basically your personality at this point. With your sleeve restrained, you're allowed to hover near the work. A mold's inner surface is dusted and smoothed. Two sections are aligned and pressed together until the seam is almost invisible. Clamps are set. The mold is turned, tested, tapped lightly. The sound is dull and confident, the way a well-made bowl sounds when you knock it. Near the furnace, a crucible sits nestled in heat. You watch metal inside it shift from solid to sluggish to liquid, its surface shimmering like thick water. The bellows push, and the glow intensifies. The liquid brightens and becomes more uniform, the way a cloudy mind clears when you finally sleep. Someone schemes impurities from the surface with a practiced motion, lifting away what doesn't belong. Then comes the moment your body recognizes as important, even if your mind tries to stay cool. The crucible is lifted with tongs that bite and hold. The air around it seems to tighten. Heat rises in waves you can actually see, bending the world's edges. Everyone's movements slow, not from hesitation, but from precision. A mistake here doesn't make a cute mess, it makes a dangerous one. The mold waits on a bed of sand. A channel at its top is open, a mouth ready to receive. The crucible tilts. The metal pours. It doesn't splash like water. It flows heavy, bright, and purposeful, a ribbon of light sliding into darkness. The sound is soft but intense, like rain hitting a very hot stone. You find you're holding your breath, then force yourself to exhale slowly, because your lungs are not part of the process and do not need to be dramatic. For a second the stream wavers, just a minor hesitation as the angle shifts, and your stomach tightens again, because your brain is addicted to catastrophe. But the hands holding the crucible correct with a small adjustment. The stream steadies. The mold fills. Excess metal gathers at the mouth in a shining bead before settling. The crucible is righted and set back. The mold sits, radiating heat into the sand. The locals do not rush the cooling, because bronze doesn't care about your impatience. It will set at its own pace. They mark the time not with words but with actions, cleaning tools, checking another mold, shifting charcoal, preparing the next steps. Work continues around the newborn casting as if it is simply another breath in a long day. When the mold is finally safe to touch, it's opened carefully. Clay sections lift away. Inside, the fresh bronze form appears, still dull, still carrying the clay's ghost on its surface. It is not yet polished, not yet handsome, but it exists. It has weight. It has shape. It has survived becoming itself. You stand there with the heat on your face and smoke in your hair, your sleeve tied back like a disciplined student, and you feel something settle in you, quiet respect, not for fire's drama, but for the patience that controls it. The foundry air clings to you the way peony pollen does, stubbornly, insistently, as proof you stood close enough to learn. When you step back out into the lane, the world feels cooler, even though the sun is still up. Your skin holds the memory of furnace glow. Your mind holds the rhythm, earth, fire, timing, and calm hands that don't flinch. And somewhere inside Luoyang, the luo keeps sliding past stone, carrying mist and reed shadows, unbothered, steady, and quietly proud that you're finally learning to move like you belong. The foundry heat trails you like a stubborn afterthought. Even back under open sky, your skin still remembers the furnace's glow, and your lungs still taste faint mineral smoke. You untie the cloth that kept your sleeve pinned back and let your arm breathe again, but you keep the lesson, fabric close, elbows in. Luoyang is full of things that don't forgive flailing, even when they're polite about it. The lanes widen, and the city's voice changes. The deep bellows hum fades behind you, replaced by a layered day noise, baskets thumping onto tables, knives tapping boards, water splashing into tubs, charcoal stoves hissing softly. Smells stack and shift with every step: ginger and scallion, toasted sesame, fermented bean paste, dried citrus peel. And underneath, a sweetness keeps threading through: peony, still insisting on being part of your day. Market day spreads like a living thing. Awnings flap in slow gusts. Fabric hangs in folds. Greens spill from shallow baskets. Fish flash silver on wet boards. Grain is pounded somewhere with a steady rhythm that loosens your shoulders. You move carefully through the crowd, not because you're shy, but because you've seen what happens when someone carrying soup meets someone carrying urgency. A stall near the center pulls you in with its calm order. Drawers line the wall in tight rows. Bundles of herbs hang from beams, tied with string that has learned patience. Jars hold dried slices, pale roots, curled bark, brittle blossoms, each one packed neatly as if chaos is a rumor. The air here is bitter and clean, the scent of remedies, not pretty, but clarifying. You hover at the threshold, and your body makes a quiet request before your mind can pretend it's fine. The foundry's heat has dried you out. Your throat feels dusty. A small pulse taps at your temples, a reminder that you are, inconveniently, made of water. You pause to breathe and notice a bowl of water set by the stall's edge with thin strips of citrus peel floating on the surface. The fragrance rises cool and sharp, like someone has opened a window inside your head. A small cup appears near your hand. No fuss, no insistence, just practical hospitality. Steam lifts from a pale infusion, and when you bring it close, the scent is unmistakable: peony, but lighter than the garden, thinned by something bright. You sip slowly. The warmth spreads through your chest in a calmer way than furnace heat, and your mouth feels less like dust and more like relief. The market's noise doesn't vanish, but it stops pressing so hard. It becomes a river of sound you can float on. You watch the apothecary's hands work: pinch, measure, fold, tie, each motion restrained, each step done in order. It clicks with the other lessons you've been collecting: water added drop by drop to make ink behave, poured carefully at peony roots, kept off paper bundles at the dock, respected around molten bronze. Luoyang keeps repeating itself. Too much is how you ruin what you love. You drift back into the square with your breathing steadier, and the city's smaller habits show themselves. A red thread tied around a basket handle. A coin tucked under a scale before weighing. A pinch of salt flicked aside, quick and casual, as if it's just another kind of tidying. Nobody performs these gestures. They do them the way you adjust your collar when wind changes, automatic, stitched into daily life. Your fingers brush your sleeve again and find the faint gold haze of peony pollen still clinging. It's lighter now, smeared into a soft stain, but it refuses to vanish. Luoyang leaves marks, and then it watches what you do with them. Then the small problem arrives, because days that feel too smooth are usually hiding something. You reach into your pouch for a coin, maybe for sesame candy, maybe just to prove you can participate like a normal person, and your fingers meet empty cloth. You check again, slower, as if speed was the issue. Still nothing. Your mind starts composing a tragedy. Pickpockets, bad omens, a tidy moral about careless strangers. You feel your shoulders tighten, and then you remember the sandbar, The way panic contributed nothing except a faster heartbeat for sport. You lengthen your breath. You retrace your steps at half speed, not accusing anyone, just following the logic of your own hands. Near the apothecary's stall, you spot it, the coin resting at the rim of the citrus water bowl, held in place by a thin film of moisture. It must have slipped from your fingers when you paused to breathe, dropped without sound, saved from rolling away by sheer luck and a wet surface that decided to be kind today. You pick it up. Cool metal. An embarrassing amount of relief for something so small. You tie the pouch again, tighter this time. To close the moment, you buy something modest from a nearby vendor. A small paper packet of peony tea blended with dried citrus peel. The parcel sits in your palm with neat weight, tied with string that looks like it knows how to hold the day together. When you leave the square, the bustle softens into side streets. Your head feels clearer. Your mouth holds the tea's faint sweetness. The foundry's heat has cooled into a quiet afterglow, and you realize you've been walking for hours without the usual sense of chasing time. Behind you, the market keeps breathing. Ahead, Luoyang waits with its next slow invitation, carrying river damp, ink, brown smoke, and peony, always peony, threaded through the air like a signature you still can't quite rub away. The market's noise fades behind you the way a drumbeat fades when you step indoors, still present in the body, but no longer pressing on the ears. You follow a road that widens and straightens, stones fitted with more intention, walls cleaned more often, corners less forgiving of dirt. The city's posture changes here. Luoyang sits up. You feel it in the way people move. Loads are carried the same, but steps are more measured, shoulders more squared. Even stray dogs seem to choose cleaner shade. A breeze slides along the avenue and brings a different kind of scent, not the heavy stew of market spices, not the mineral bite of foundries. This is incense and lacquer, and old wood warmed by sun. The Imperial Avenue isn't a single dramatic reveal. It's a gradual thickening of order. Buildings align. Roof lines repeat. Drains run straighter. The road becomes a long, steady ribbon that suggests the city has practiced being seen. You walk it without rushing, partly because you're learning, partly because the avenue itself makes rushing feel childish, like sprinting through a library. Temples appear like calm interruptions, gates with carved beams, courtyards with stone lanterns, trees trained to shade at the right angle. Inside, the air cools. The outside world quiets, as if it's being politely asked to wait. Incense smoke rises in thin, patient lines, and the light becomes softer under eaves, turning faces into gentle shadows. You step into one temple courtyard and let your eyes adjust. A bell hangs under a beam, dark bronze, surface worn smooth where hands have touched it over generations. A faint metallic smell rises when the air shifts, and for a second you're back near the furnace mouth, watching molten light pour into clay. Here, the bronze is cooled into permanence, but the same discipline lingers, making something meant to last. Your sleeve brushes your side, and the peony pollen stain catches again, faint gold, softened by time and rubbing. It looks almost intentional in this softer light, which is unfair, because it started as an accident and became a companion. You run a thumb over it and feel the fabric's grain, and you realize you've stopped trying to erase it. Luoyang has marked you, and your body has quietly accepted that some traces are meant to stay. From the temple, you follow smaller paths that branch off the grand road like veins. These are quieter lanes where walls rise higher, gates are heavier, and courtyards hide their lives behind wooden screens. You pass glimpses through slats, a basin catching sun, a potted peony sheltered from wind, a servant carrying folded cloth. Private worlds, maintained with the same calm competence you keep meeting. A steward leads you toward one of these hidden courtyards, and the transition feels like stepping from a public stage into a backstage corridor. The air cools. The sound dampens. A wooden gate opens onto a space that has been designed to feel effortless, which is always the most effortful kind of design. Inside, peonies bloom again, but here they are different from the gardener's beds. These are curated, placed like precious objects without looking forced. Pots sit on stands at exactly the height that makes their blossoms level with your eyes. The petals are fuller, the colors richer, as if someone has been bribing them with extra care and extremely polite threats. A small pond reflects the blooms, doubling their softness. Locals move through the courtyard with the gentle authority of hosts. They do not show you the place as if it's a museum. They simply move through their routines and let you follow. A cloth is laid on a table. A kettle is set to heat. A small packet of peony tea, like the one you bought, sits near a tray of cups. The gesture is quiet, but it carries a message. You've been walking long enough. Let the city hold you for a moment. You sit under a shaded eave and let the day settle. The tea's steam rises, carrying peony sweetness thinned by citrus. The cup warms your palms. Somewhere deeper in the courtyard, water trickles, just enough sound to keep your mind from inventing new worries. And because Luoyang apparently believes in gentle tests, the next small problem arrives wrapped in beauty. A sudden gust threads through the courtyard. It's not violent, just sharp enough to remind you that walls don't stop wind, they only shape it. The breeze lifts a few loose petals from a nearby pot. They tumble through air like slow, careless butterflies. You watch one petal drift toward the pond and land on the water's surface, floating perfectly. Another catches in a bamboo screen, trembling. A few fall onto stone and stick there, dampened by the faint moisture that clings in shaded corners. It's all lovely, until you notice something less lovely. The gust has also nudged a taller potted peony, one balanced on a wooden stand. The pot shifts a fraction. The stand creaks softly. A pot tipping is not a tragedy in the grand sense. But here, in a courtyard where everything has been arranged with devotion, it feels like a violation. Not dramatic, just heartbreaking in a quiet way. Soil spills, roots stress, a bloom snaps. The kind of small damage that ruins someone's careful season. You rise without rushing. You step toward the stand and place your hands near the pot, not grabbing, not jolting it, just steadying. You remember the riverboat, the way you learned to agree with movement instead of fighting it. You remember the dock wake, the cloth pulled down in time. You remember the foundry, slow hands, controlled pressure. You shift the pot back into the center of the stand with a tiny adjustment, moving it a finger's width at a time. The stand stops creaking. The pot settles. The plant sways once, then steadies, blossoms heavy and offended but intact. A local arrives with a small wedge of wood, just a thin shim. They slide it under one leg of the stand where the stone is uneven. The stand levels. The thread vanishes. The entire rescue happens without words, without gratitude speeches, without anyone pretending it was heroic. It is simply how people here live, noticing, adjusting, preventing small disasters from becoming big ones. You sit again, heart still a bit elevated, and let it slow. The petals that fell remain scattered, one on the pond, one caught in bamboo, a few on stone like dropped silk. Nobody rushes to tidy them. They're allowed to be part of the moment, proof that wind exists and beauty can move. As afternoon leans toward evening, the courtyard's lamplight begins to matter again. Shadows deepen. The peonies look heavier, their colors richer in low light. Beyond the walls, the Imperial Avenue continues its long, public composure. Inside, in this tucked-away pocket, you feel the city's softer truth. Even splendor is held together by small, quiet acts of care. You leave the hidden courtyard carrying tea warmth in your palms and the memory of that almost tipping pot in your chest. The peony pollen stain still sits on your sleeve, faint gold catching lamplight like a secret. Luoyang doesn't just show you beauty. It teaches you how easily it can wobble, and how gently you can keep it upright. You leave the hidden courtyard carrying tea warmth, and the quiet thrill of saving a peony pot from tipping, and Luoyang answers by turning the volume up on purpose. The Peony Festival has been gathering all day like a hell breath. Now it releases. Lantern lines, banners, incense, flower stands, and the steady shuffle of people who have decided that beauty is worth organizing. The broad avenue is transformed. Paper lanterns hang at measured intervals, pale globes waiting for dusk. Ropes cross overhead like careful stitches, holding streamers that flutter and settle. Tables line the sides with shallow trays of petals, some fresh, some already curling at the edges, because time touches everything first. Peonies stand everywhere, potted on wooden stands, tucked into woven baskets, arranged so the blossoms sit at eye level like heavy, sleepy faces. The scent is thick now, not a thread but a fabric, and it settles on your lungs like a gentle weight you don't mind carrying. Along one side, scholars have set out small displays beneath awnings, calligraphy sheets weighted at the corners, ink paintings behind thin oiled cloth, poems written in tight columns. The mineral bite of ink rises when you pass, softened by peony sweetness. Near a temple gate, a bronze bell hangs still and dark, catching stray lantern light on its worn surface. Lanterns are lit as dusk deepens. One by one the street becomes a slow river of light. The crowd's movement changes, less rushing, more lingering. Faces tilt up. Vendors stop shouting and start waiting. And because the world loves to test a beautiful night, the sky shifts. At first you blame your eyes. Then the breeze changes direction, cooler and sharper, carrying wet earth. Flames flicker inside their paper shells. A cloud edge rolls over the last sunlight like a lid lowering. A fat drop of rain hits stone with a sound too loud for how small it is. Another follows. The air thickens into that particular suspense, not panic, just calculation. Rain is not dramatic at first. It is simply a problem with patience. Paper lanterns do not love water. Calligraphy certainly does not. Peonies, heavy with petals, bruise when rain strikes them the wrong way, and a careless gust can snap a stem like it's offended by softness. Your chest tightens with the old instinct to worry loudly, and you catch yourself. You inhale slow. You become useful. Cloth covers appear from beneath tables. Awnings are tightened. Displays are nudged deeper under shelter. Someone drapes oiled fabric over the scholar's work with a smooth sweep that traps the ink smell inside like a secret kept safe. Lantern ropes are lowered a fraction, then lifted again when the angle keeps flames sheltered. A corner of cloth is placed in your hands, Luoyang's favorite way of turning you into a steady object. You hold one edge down while other hands pull the cover taut across the table. Water beads and runs off in quick shining lines. Your fingertips stay still, applying just enough pressure to keep wind from sneaking underneath. The dog taught you where trouble begins, a fluttering corner. The rain strengthens. Lantern light shivers through wet air. Some flames dim behind damp paper and become weak, embarrassed glows. A few lanterns sag as frames absorb moisture, and you watch one tilt with that awful slow inevitability. Your mind offers a dramatic film version, paper collapsing, flame dropping, the whole avenue flashing into chaos. It's vivid, and it is, as always, unhelpful. So you move the way you've been trained to move, slow, precise, no wasted force. You step under the rope line and steady the lantern with two fingertips at its lowest point, guiding its weight back into balance. Another hand tightens the knot above. The lantern stops sagging. The flame steadies behind its paper skin, still alive, still calm. You withdraw before heat can teach you another lesson. Nearby, potted peonies are being shifted toward eaves in a deliberate chain. Lift, step, place, wedge. Not a frantic parade, just competent care. You slide a thin shim under one stand leg where wet stone is uneven, the same fix you watched in the hidden courtyard. The stand levels. The pot settles. A bloom trembles once as wind brushes it, then holds. For a few minutes the storm pushes harder, sending rain at an angle. It tries every weakness, lifting cloth edges, turning stones slick, making lanterns shiver. You keep your stance low and your feet sure, agreeing with the ground the way you agreed with the riverboat, letting the city's rhythm carry you instead of fighting it. Your sleeve brushes your side and the faint gold peony pollen stain, still stubborn, darkens at the edge, softened into a warmer smear. Then the rain loosens, drops thin. The air lightens. Streamers stop snapping and return to a softer flutter. Lantern flames regain confidence. Someone wipes water from a frame and the paper brightens again, glowing like a small moon that refuses to be embarrassed. The crowd doesn't cheer. It simply resumes, cautious at first, then slower, then grateful. Wet petals stick to stone like fallen silk, and no one rushes to sweep them away. The scholar sheets remain protected, ink unblurred. The peonies, sheltered and stubborn, keep blooming as if they've never heard of rain. Under the returning hush of lantern light, you feel the lesson settle quietly in your chest. Problems arrive, but calm hands and small adjustments can keep an entire night from tipping over. The rain's retreat leaves the avenue smelling clean and bruised. Wet stone, damp paper, crushed petals. Lantern light looks softer now, as if it has been rinsed. People move again, slower, a little more careful, like a crowd that has been reminded it is made of bodies and not wishes. The festival continues, but with a new layer, gratitude that the night didn't break. You drift away from the busiest stretch, following the edges where awnings still drip and cloth covers are being folded with calm hands. The sky remains uncertain, clouds stacked like dark wool. A breeze carries river damp through the streets, and your mind follows it, drawn toward the luau not for excitement but for steadiness. Water has been the city's quiet reset button for you. Ink, riverboat, dock, rinse, breathe, continue. A narrow lane slopes down toward the bank, where lantern reflections smear across the water like loose brushwork. The scholar's riverboat is moored there, slightly farther from the steps than before, ropes tightened after the wake lesson earlier. The hull rocks in small, controlled motions, as if it never fully stops agreeing with the current. You step aboard with your knees loose and your feet placed like commas, trying to look like you belong. The boat answers with a gentle sway anyway, and you let it, not fighting, not panicking, just shifting your weight the way you've been taught. Your sleeve brushes your side. The peony pollen stain catches the lantern light faintly, like a secret signature. The boat pushes off into the dark water, and the city's lanterns stretch into a wavering ribbon behind you. The luau at night has its own softness. Sounds travel differently, muted, blurred. The slap of water against wood becomes a lullaby. Reeds along the bank whisper like dry paper. The air is cool enough to make your skin tighten, but not cold enough to demand suffering. The locals on board move with the same calm competence you keep watching everywhere in Luoyang. Small corrections, steady hands, no dramatic sighing. A cloth is pulled over a basket. A knot is retied without fuss. An oar dips, lifts, and returns, keeping the boat on a line that looks effortless until you try imagining how hard it is to maintain. For a while, it feels like the river is forgiving you, like the storm was a one-off, and the night will now behave because you deserve a smooth ending. Your brain loves this fantasy. It wants to settle in, declare victory, and go to sleep with a smug little smile. Then the wind shifts again. Not a gale, not a screaming thing. Just a steady push that changes the boat's angle and makes the water surface rougher in small patches. You feel it in the hull first, a tighter rocking, a slightly quicker sway. Lantern reflections on the water break into fragments. A cool line of air slides under the roof and touches your neck. And because Luoyang enjoys testing you in gentle ways that still make your heart jump, the boat's cover cloth flutters. A corner lifts, then drops, then lifts again. Under it, paper bundles, sealed and wrapped, the kind that do not want moisture in their lives. The river doesn't care about paper's preferences. The first instinct in your chest is to reach and tug hard. To clamp down like force is the only language you speak. But you remember the festival. Cloth edges are where trouble begins. You remember the dock wake, press, tuck, secure. You remember the foundry, slow hands, controlled pressure. You remember the scholar's ink, one smear is enough. So you move quietly. You slide closer without stepping where the boat needs space to breathe. You place your palm on the cloth, flat, gentle, feeling the bundled paper beneath. The cloth flutters at the edge of your hand, trying to lift, and your fingers adjust, not grabbing but guiding. You fold the corner inward, creating a thicker edge that wind can't catch as easily. Then you tuck that fold under a basket rim, locking it in place without needing a knot. The wind pushes again. The cloth stays down. It's a small victory, almost insulting in its simplicity, and that's what makes it satisfying. You become useful without becoming loud. Your body stays steady, knees loose, weight agreeing with the boat's sway. Your breath remains slow, because panic contributes nothing except sweat. A stronger gust arrives and the boat yaws slightly. The oar corrects. The bow realigns. Someone shifts a pole to change the boat's resistance against the current. The wind tries to make the river messy, and the river tries to make the boat drift, and the locals respond the way they always do, not with complaint, but with small, competent adjustments. Rain threatens again, just a few drops, testing. They tap the roof and slide away. The air smells sharp with wetness, but the sky holds. The river keeps moving. The boat keeps breathing. You sit back once the cloth is secured, hands resting on your knees. You notice the subtle tremor in your fingers, your body's leftover excitement, and you let it fade. You watch the city's lantern line recede behind you, and you feel a quiet admiration for the kind of people who handle uncertainty as a normal part of living. No speeches. No drama. Just skill. When the wind finally eases, the water smooths slightly, and the lantern reflections begin to stretch again into longer, calmer streaks. The boat's rocking slows. The cloth remains in place, your tuck holding like a promise. You exhale, and it feels like letting go of something you didn't realize you were gripping. The river carries you onward in steady darkness, and you understand the lesson as it settles into your bones. Luoyang doesn't demand that you control the world. It teaches you to notice what's shifting, to respond with care, and to keep going without making a performance out of surviving. The river sets you down again without ceremony, stone steps slick with last night's rinse, rope fibers darkened by moisture, the hull rocking once as if it's reminding you to keep your knees loose. Lantern light from the festival has thinned into distance. What remains is the city's steady breathing, water against stone, a cartwheel somewhere, a broom scraping grit into order. You walk inland through lanes that still hold rain in their shadows. Roof edges drip with patient insistence. The air is cooler, rinse clean, and threaded with that warm metallic note you've begun to recognize, brown smoke, faint but insistent, calling you back toward heat. By morning, the foundry quarter is awake with tightened efficiency. Cloth covers lie over clay piles. Charcoal stacks sit higher, guarded from damp. The ground smells wetter than it should, and every surface seems to remember how easily moisture becomes sabotage. Inside the workshop, warmth returns in layers, but it is rescue heat now, not the proud glow of yesterday's first casting. Molds sit in rows. Some look fine until you see their seams, slightly softened, slightly darkened, as if water has crept into them while everyone slept. A light tap on one mold gives a sound that is wrong, too soft, too yielding. Another shows a hairline split that seems harmless until you imagine molten metal pressing outward and finding the weakness. And then you see the disappointment already waiting. A bronze casting from the previous day, still rough, still carrying traces of clay, holds a thin fracture along its edge. It isn't dramatic. It's worse, subtle enough to hide until light catches it, inevitable enough to grow once the piece is used. The night's dampness has left a bruise on metal. Your mind offers loud, unhelpful ideas. Fix it fast. Pretend it's fine. You let those thoughts pass like river ripples and keep your body in the room, where solutions are never a performance. The locals shift into repair as if it's simply the next step on a list. Damp molds are separated from dry ones. Those that can be saved are placed near low heat, close enough to coax moisture out, far enough to avoid cracking the clay with impatience. Cloth is draped to control airflow, and you recognize the danger immediately. Corners lift first. A breeze nudges one edge. You press it down with your palm, human paperweight again, steady and quiet. Your task stays small and constant. You move charcoal to a drier corner. You sweep ash so it won't drift into seams. You keep water bowls covered. You hold the mold steady while it's rotated, because drying must be even. Too much heat in one place, and clay splits. Too little, and dampness stays hidden. Your sleeve swings once, and you catch it before it can betray you. The faint peony pollen stain still lives on your fabric, a soft reminder to keep close to the work and not lean with your whole body. The cracked bronze isn't mourned. It's assessed. The fracture is traced by angle and light. The decision settles quietly. The piece isn't patched. It's remade. Bronze accepts recycling with a kind of stoic grace. The damaged casting is set aside with other scraps, ready to return to the crucible. The furnace breathes. Bellows push, glow brightens, heat thickens the air. Scrap bronze is added, and you watch solid metal soften and merge into liquid. Impurities are skimmed. The surface clears. The molten bronze becomes steady, bright, and patient. Molds are judged one by one. Some pass inspection. Some are quietly abandoned, broken down and returned to earth because a weak mold isn't almost fine. It's future failure. Loss is treated like falling petals, unfortunate, normal, not worth melodrama. A fresh mold is prepared for the remade casting. Clay is pressed, smoothed, sealed at its seams with controlled pressure. The channel is cleared. A bed of sand is leveled to support the mold's weight. You bring dry sand and shake it into place, watching it settle into every gap, absorbing what threatens and holding what matters. The pour happens again. The crucible is lifted, heat bending the air around it. Movement slow, not from fear, but from precision. The metal tilts into a thick ribbon of light and slides into the mold's mouth with a soft, intense sound. The mold drinks the bronze. A bead gathers at the top and settles. The crucible is righted. Cooling is given its dignity. No tapping early. No rushing the moment that can't be rushed. While the casting becomes itself, the workshop resets. Tools wiped, ash swept again, cloth corners checked one more time, dampness chased away from hidden seams. When the mold is finally opened, the new casting appears, still dull, still unpolished, but whole. No hairline betrayal catching the light. Just weight, shape, and the patient reward of doing it again the right way. Your shoulders loosen without permission, and you realize you've been holding tension as if it was part of your job. Outside, Luoyang continues, river breathing, markets rebuilding their noise, peonies opening and closing on schedules no storm fully controls. Inside, the foundry returns to its steady rhythm, and you stand there with smoke in your hair and calm in your chest, learning a truth the city keeps repeating: repair isn't a detour. It's one of the main crafts. The foundry's warmth stays with you as you step back into the street, less like heat on skin now, more like a quiet ember behind the ribs. The city air feels cooler by contrast, rinsed by last night's rain and carrying that clean smell of stone drying in sunlight. You walk without aim for a while, which is Luoyang's favorite trick, make wandering feel like purpose. A lane bends toward the Scholar Quarter again. The nearer you get, the more the sounds soften, hammers replaced by page turns, shouting replaced by low footfalls, smoke replaced by ink and old paper. You follow that gentler current until you reach a compound whose doorway looks plain from outside, as if it doesn't want attention. Inside, it opens into calm, a courtyard with a tree whose leaves hold light in small trembling patches, a covered walkway, and doors that guard rooms of stored words. The library smells like time, dry bamboo, dust that isn't dirty, just settled, paper that has been handled enough to grow soft at its edges, ink that has soaked through in places and left shadows on the reverse, like memories you can't fully erase. The air is cool, and the quiet is not empty. It's full of contained things. You step in and your instincts immediately want to do something wrong, touch everything, pull a scroll too fast, breathe too loudly. So you slow. You keep your hands close. You let the room teach you how to exist in it. Shelves line the walls in ordered rows. Bundles of scrolls sit tied with cord. Wooden boxes hold records sealed against damp. A table in the center carries ledgers, thick volumes with worn corners, pages ruled and filled with careful marks. A small oil lamp rests nearby even though it's daytime, because this place understands that light is a tool, not a mood. Locals move through the space with a particular kind of respect that isn't worship. It's maintenance. One lifts a box, checks for pests, sets it back. Another wipes a table edge so grit won't scratch paper. Someone adds a small dish of drying herbs in a corner to discourage moisture and insects. The gestures are tiny but constant, the same quiet prevention you saw in peony courts and foundries. You are guided to a low stool near a ledger spread open. The pages show lists, names, dates, quantities, notes in tight characters. A record of river cargo. A record of offerings to a temple. A record of bronze orders, perhaps, written by someone who never stood close enough to feel the furnace heat but still needed the numbers to be correct. The city writes itself into permanence here. The small problem arrives as the universe's favorite joke, your sleeve. It shifts forward as you lean, and you catch it in time, because now you do catch it in time. You tuck the fabric back, feeling the faint peony pollen stain under your fingers. It's still there, softened into a warm shadow. In the foundry it was a potential contaminant. Here, it's simply a trace, evidence you've moved through lives that don't belong to you and tried, at least, not to ruin anything. Hours pass in a way that feels unlike normal time. The library doesn't rush you. It also doesn't let you forget yourself. Your eyes track lines of ink. Your breathing falls into the rhythm of page turning, lift, pause, settle. You find your mind doing something rare, focusing without strain. Then the air shifts. A cool draft slides under a door. The smell changes, faintly wet. Your skin prickles with a quiet alarm you've earned honestly. Moisture near paper is not romantic. It is an enemy with a gentle face. Someone else notices too. A hand presses lightly to a wooden box lid. The box feels cooler than it should. The draft strengthens for a moment, and you realize a door or shutter has been left slightly open, just a crack, just enough to invite dampness from the rinsed air outside. Rain may be done, but the world stays wet afterward, and libraries know this the way old bones know weather. There's no panic. The response is immediate and calm. One person moves to close the shutter fully, fitting it into its groove until the crack vanishes. Another checks the boxes near the draft, shifting them a hand's width away from the door line. A cloth is placed over the most exposed ledger, not dramatic, just protective. You are given a task that feels almost ceremonial in its simplicity. Hold the cloth down while they adjust the table placement. You press your palm flat, feeling the paper's faint texture beneath the fabric. The draft dies as the shutter seals. The cloth stops fluttering. The ledger is safe. They bring out a small brazier, low, controlled heat, to dry the room gently without scorching paper. It's the same principle as drying clay near a furnace. Coax moisture out slowly, never forcing it. You watch the flame and think of the foundry's roar, and the contrast makes you smile inwardly. Fire can be a monster or a caretaker. It depends on who's holding it. As the room stabilizes, your fatigue rises like a tide. Your eyes grow heavy, not from boredom but from the rare peace of a mind not being demanded. The lamp's light becomes warmer as afternoon fades. Shadows deepen along shelf edges. Dust motes drift in slow spirals. You sit back, letting the calm settle into your chest. The city outside keeps moving, but here history is held still, protected by cords, boxes, cloth corners pressed down at the right moment. You realize how much of Luoyang depends on this invisible labor, people preventing small harms before they become big losses. When you finally stand to leave, your legs feel slightly unreal, as if the floor has been gently rocking like a boat. You step into the courtyard, breathe in cooler air, and carry the library's quiet with you like an extra layer of clothing. Your sleeve brushes your side, and the peony stain catches the light again, soft, persistent, reminding you that even when you try to leave no trace, the city will still keep a small mark on you, and maybe that's not a bad thing. Evening settles quietly. When you leave the library courtyard, the air feels cooler and a little damp at the edges, as if the day is still drying from the inside out. Luoyang's noises sit lower now, carts rolling instead of clattering, footsteps padding instead of slapping, vendors calling in shorter, tired bursts. You follow lantern light down toward the luau. Lamps bloom under eaves, their flames sheltered. The river waits beyond the last row of houses, a dark band of moving ink under the sky. At the bank, people gather in a calm, deliberate crowd. A stack of paper lanterns rests on a mat, thin ribs, pale skins, small reservoirs for flame. The air smells of wet stone and incense, and stubbornly peony, because Luoyang refuses to let you forget what it values. Your sleeve brushes your side as you step closer, and the soft, gold haze of pollen catches a lamp's glow. Still there. Still refusing to be erased. At this point it feels less like a stain and more like the city's signature, scribbled on you in tiny, irritating kindness. The ritual begins without speeches. Lanterns are lit one by one, flames born small and shy, then steadied by cupped hands that know exactly how much wine exists at this hour. Paper warms and turns translucent. Each lantern is lowered to the water's edge and released, and the river accepts it with a soft kiss of current. For a while, it's everything you wanted: slow movement, soft light, reflections trembling like loose calligraphy. Lanterns drift out from the steps in a scattered line, their flames rocking with the water's breathing. Your shoulders loosen. Then the luau does what rivers do. It changes its mind. The surface ahead looks slightly different, too smooth in one patch, too busy along the edge of another. The lantern line bends, not in a pretty arc but in a subtle tug toward the bank. One lantern bumps another. A third slips sideways. Their reflections overlap and smear, and the line gathers into a cluster that has no business being that close together. Your chest tightens with the instinct to panic, the same instinct that tried to write a tragedy about a missing coin. You keep your mouth closed. You breathe. You remember the sandbar that didn't care about your feelings. You remember the cloth corner at the dock, the shutter crack in the library, the way small problems get big when you add chaos. Downstream, the hazard reveals itself, reeds and floating debris caught near a low stone outcrop. Nothing cinematic, just ordinary obstruction, the kind that becomes exciting the moment paper and flame drift into it. A lantern catches the reeds. Its paper skin dense. The flame inside flickers, suddenly too close to the paper. Another lantern drifts into it, and the two glow brighter for a heartbeat in a way that is not reassuring. No one shouts. People move with the same quiet competence you've seen all over the city. A long pole appears, the kind used for boats and shallow water work. Someone steps onto the lowest stone with careful feet. Another lays a cloth over the slick edge for traction. You find your palm pressing down one corner because of course it's you again. Luoyang's unofficial cloth weight. The pole reaches out and nudges the reed tangle gently, not thrashing. The goal isn't to destroy the obstacle, it's to open a path. The current resists. The pole adjusts angle, like an oar correcting a drifting bow. A lantern slips free by a fraction, then catches again. You edge closer, keeping your sleeve tucked back. The peony pollen stain flashes as you lean, and you have the absurd thought that if you fall in now, you'll finally wash that stubborn gold away, which would be a terrible reason to become a cautionary tale. So you hold your balance like it matters, because it does. A second, shorter pole is placed into your hands. The task is simple. Brace the reeds from the sides so they don't swing back into the lantern's path. You press the pole into the tangle with controlled pressure. Not enough to shove. Just enough to hold. You feel the current pushing through the reeds like a living muscle, and you match it with quiet resistance, knees loose, breath slow, no heroics. The lantern with the dented paper rotates as the pole's angle changes. Its flame shifts away from the softened seam. That tiny rotation buys time. Another lantern bumps it lightly, then slides past instead of pinning it. The cluster loosens. One by one, lanterns are guided free. The river seam still tugs, but the path is clearer now, and the line stretches again into a gentle drift. It doesn't feel like victory so much as the problem agreeing to become smaller. And irritatingly, it's enough. When the last lantern clears the reeds, the bank crowd relaxes in a collective, almost inaudible way. A few lanterns burn dimmer. A few have wrinkled skins, but none collapse into disaster. The ritual continues, patched rather than ruined, like a remade casting after dampness, like a ledger saved by closing a shutter in time. You step back from the stones, hands cool and damp. The cloth is folded away. The poles are set down. Lanterns drift farther into darkness, their reflections thinning until they look like faint strokes on the river's moving page. You watch them go and feel something tender and practical settle in you. Luoyang doesn't promise uninterrupted beauty. It offers beauty that wobbles, and then shows you how people keep it afloat anyway, quietly, together, with steady hands. The lanterns drift until they are only faint scratches of light on the luau, and then they dissolve, leaving dark water moving under a darker sky. You step back from the stones with damp on your fingertips and the calm satisfaction of helping without turning it into a ceremony. The crowd thins. Poles are stacked. Cloth is folded. The river keeps going, unimpressed. You walk away through streets that smell rinsed. The festival has softened. Lanterns still hanging, fewer flames, fewer feet. A breeze carries incense, wet stone, and that sweet edge of peony. Your sleeve brushes your side and the faint gold haze catches lamplight again. Still there. Still Luoyang's stubborn autograph. You follow the sweetness into quieter lanes, back to the plain gate that hides a courtyard like a secret. Inside, the air turns warmer and quieter at once. Bamboo whispers. The pond holds a slice of moon. The beds look different now, blossoms still heavy, but edges loosening, petals scattered on stone like dropped silk. Not less beautiful, just closer to change. You move along the path with the posture Luoyang has forced into you, slow feet, loose knees, elbows close. After dew, ink, river wakes, and furnace heat, you finally understand that flailing is expensive here. A gardener works in the beds with calm hands. A tray waits nearby with paper sheets stacked inside, weighted at the corners with smooth stones. You recognize the dry paper and think of the scholar quarter. Paper remembers everything. Here, the paper is for petals. One outer petal is chosen, thin at the rim, ready to bruise. It is removed with a neat pinch and laid flat on a sheet. A few more follow, arranged so the veins show and the color won't collapse into dullness. The sheet folds over them. A stone settles on top. The petals disappear between layers, beginning their slow shift from scent to memory. You are given a basket lined with dry cloth. The task is simple: collect what the beds can spare. Fallen petals lift reluctantly from damp stone, then release. You lay them into the basket and cover them again, because you've learned that in this city the dangerous moment is always the exposed edge. Beneath some blooms, seed pods are forming, green, firm, quietly clenched. The gardener checks one with a fingertip, more listening than touching. Not ready. Soon. The plant has already started planning the next season. It feels almost rude, but it's also reassuring. Luoyang's beauty doesn't end, it changes jobs. The work stays quiet enough to slow your mind. The pond trembles when a bamboo leaf drops. Peony scent pools near the soil. Your sleeve's gold stain looks less like pollen now and more like a faded brush stroke you've stopped arguing with. Then the courtyard gives you one last small problem, neatly wrapped in wind. A cool breeze slides under the eaves and lifts the basket cloth. Petals shift, light as breath. One petal slips free and skitters toward the pond, pushed by air that acts innocent. You move fast enough to catch it, careful enough not to slip. Your foot lands near the pond edge where stone is still slightly damp. Your balance wavers. For a heartbeat you picture yourself falling in and finally washing the peony stain away in the dumbest possible way. You decide instead to stay upright. You correct the wobble the way the riverboat taught you, knees loose, weight adjusting with the motion, not against it. You steady on a post. The petal lands on the pond and floats, drifting toward bamboo's shadow. You pick up a thin fallen reed and nudge the petal's edge. No pushing, just guiding, until it glides to a flat rock. You pinch it gently, return it to the basket, and tuck the cloth corner under the rim, secured the way you secured paper bundles on the boat. Cloth corners are always the first betrayal. The gardener adds another stone to the pressed petal stack. Another sheet folds. The rhythm stays steady: choose, press, cover, hold. This is how a garden makes its own archive, without announcing it. When the work pauses, a small packet is placed in your palm, a folded square of paper tied with thin cord. Light enough to feel imaginary. Inside are a few pressed petals, already drying into shape, and a tiny hard pod husk kept as a promise of what comes next. The packet smells faintly sweet and faintly like paper that has touched real things. You tuck it against your chest for warmth and protection, because damp air is still drifting in from the river and you're not about to lose your souvenir to moisture after all this training. You stand under the eaves and listen. The pond's soft movements, bamboos whisper, distant street sounds softened by walls. Somewhere in the city, bronze cools in sand. Somewhere else, a ledger page turns. Luoyang keeps doing its patient work, whether you watch or not. You hold the packet and feel that practical tightening in your chest that means goodbye is forming. The beds keep doing what they do, loosening, dropping, forming pods, while you stand there pretending you're not attached. Your sleeve brushes your side. The peony stain is still there, faint golden lamplight, and you don't rub it away anymore. Some marks aren't dirt. They're proof you moved through a place gently enough for it to keep a piece of you. The packet of pressed petals rests against your chest, light as a secret, and you step back out through the plain gate as if you're leaving a friend's house and trying not to look back too often. The lane outside is cooler. Night has loosened its grip, letting the first gray slip between rooflines. You take one last circuit before the city fully wakes. Not a grand farewell. Just a slow loop that lets your body collect the details it will miss later. Because your mind, for all its talent, is terrible at remembering what your skin remembers. The walls come first. You follow the stone that holds Luoyang's shape, and the air changes with each step. Less garden sweetness, more mineral dust, a faint char thread that hints at bronze work warming somewhere beyond the rooftops. Lanterns still hang in a few places, dim shells after a long night. Smoke rises in thin ribbons from stoves, not yet thick enough to be hunger, just enough to be habit. A broom scuffs the ground below, soft scuff, turning yesterday's petals and rain grit into order. Your sleeve brushes your side. The peony pollen stain catches the new light, a soft gold smear that has survived river damp, ink, furnace smoke, and your occasional useless rubbing. You leave it alone. It feels less like a mistake now and more like a thread tying the city's rooms together. Peony beds to scholar table, boat cloth to dock rope, clay molds to library shutters. You angle toward the bridges. The Luo is darker at this hour, its surface holding the sky's pale shift in a thin sheen. Mist sits low. Reeds whisper in the breeze as if they're turning pages for you. A stone arch rises ahead, and you cross it with the same calm you borrowed from the riverboat. Knees loose, steps measured, weight placed where you mean it. Halfway over, the city offers you a final test in the gentlest packaging. A narrow strip of stone is slick where mist has condensed. Your foot lands a fraction off, and the world tries to tilt. For a heartbeat, your stomach flashes that old warning, about to become a story people tell. You don't stiffen. You don't fight the slip with panic. You do what Luoyang has been teaching you all along. You agree with the motion. Knees soften. Your other foot finds purchase. A hand settles on the cold rail. not gripping like fear, just touching like balance. The wobble passes. You stay upright. The bridge remains a bridge, indifferent to your private victory. On the far side, you follow the river path where the docks begin to stir. Rope lines run from posts to boats, taught as quiet decisions. Someone tightens a knot and the rope creaks. Exactly the sound your body will later remember in a different room when you're trying to sleep. A cloth is thrown over a stack of bundles, edges tucked with practiced hands. Corners secured. Always corners. You pause near a stall that is just waking, a kettle on charcoal, water beginning to roll. Steam lifts in slow curls, carrying a simple comfort: hot metal, boiled water, a hint of ginger. A small cup is set within reach, because this hour makes people practical and, occasionally, generous. You warm your palms on it and let your breath match the steam. The taste is plain, and because it's plain, it feels honest. Across the steps, a worker shifts a basket and pauses to check the cover, pressing down the edge so spray can't sneak in. It's the same movement you've done on the boat, the same movement you did in the library with a ledger under cloth. You watch it and feel your shoulders drop. The city isn't asking you to be exceptional. It's asking you to be careful. You take the long way back through quieter lanes, letting familiar scents pass like slow notes. Ink's mineral bite from the Scholar Quarter, then the warmer soot thread that marks the foundry air even from a distance. You don't go in. You don't need the furnace glow again. You already carry its rhythm, the bellows exhale, the controlled pour, the patience that remakes what dampness tries to ruin. The sky brightens by a shade. Morning arrives in small increments, as if it doesn't want to startle you. The packet of pressed petals shifts against your chest when you inhale, and the paper rustles faintly. You take it out for a moment. The cord is thin. The fold is neat. Inside, petals have flattened into delicate ghosts of color, already becoming memory. You tuck it away again, close to warmth, because you've learned how moisture sneaks in when you stop paying attention. Near a wall, a single fallen peony petal clings to damp stone, tired and dark at the edge. You lift it gently and place it at the base of a brick where it won't be crushed underfoot. It changes nothing. That's why it feels right. At last you reach the gate where travelers leave. Inside the walls, smoke sweet warmth, river damp, ink bronze, and peony, always peony. Outside, dust, openness, distance. You stand with one foot still in Luoyang's rhythm and one foot already stepping out of it. Your sleeve still holds that faint gold, stubborn as a quiet promise, and you realize you're grateful for the mark precisely because it refuses to vanish on command. You move forward, slow enough to feel the moment, and let the city fall behind you without forcing it to disappear. You keep walking, and the gate behind you becomes just another shape in the thinning mist. Luoyang doesn't chase. It simply stays where it has always been, inside its walls, inside its courtyards, inside the steady hands that press cloth corners down before wind can get clever. The road outside is quieter in a different way. There are fewer sounds, but each one is sharper: gravel underfoot, a distant cart axle squeaking, the dry hush of reeds where the Luo's side channels braid into fields. Your breath shows faintly, then disappears. You tell yourself you're leaving cleanly, which is funny, because your sleeve still carries that soft, gold peony smear like the city signed you in pollen and refused to provide an eraser. A low bend in the road brings you near water again. Not the wide, lantern-lined stretch, just a calmer reach where the river slides between stones and reeds, moving with the same patience it used when it taught you not to panic about a sandbar. The surface holds pale sky in a trembling sheet. Somewhere upstream, an oar dips once, slow and measured, and the sound lands in your chest like a remembered lullaby. You pause at the bank, not for ceremony, just because your body wants one last steady rhythm before it has to become a traveler again. Mist brushes your face. The air smells of wet stone and clean silt. For a moment you imagine the lanterns from last night, those fragile moons drifting into darkness, and you feel the soft relief of how they didn't burn down the world, because people moved quietly, together, and refused to let beauty tip. You shift your pouch higher on your shoulder, and the small packet of pressed petals inside makes a faint papery rustle. It's so light it feels almost insulting to carry it as if it matters. And yet your hand goes there automatically, protective. You've seen what damp air does to paper. You've watched ink blur at the edge of a careless draft. You've held cloth down with your palm until a fluttering corner stopped being a threat. Your body has learned the language of not yet ruined. As you start moving again, the sky gives you a final test, subtle as a smirk. A thin sprinkle of rain returns, not enough to soak, just enough to turn dust into specks that cling to skin. It's the kind of rain that exists purely to catch people who think the story is already over. Drops tap your sleeve. You glance down, and the peony stain darkens at the edge, as if the pollen is enjoying this. The road narrows between low walls. Your steps slow. Wet stone appears where shade holds moisture longer. You place your feet like commas. No exclamation points. You keep your elbows close. No flapping fabric. It's not elegance. It's survival with manners. Then the real small problem shows up, dressed as nothing. Your pouch strap slips a little on your shoulder, loosened by the damp. The packet inside shifts, cord rubbing against the pouch seam. You feel it, and you stop before it becomes dramatic. You open the pouch carefully, not in the rain's open mouth but under the shelter of a bare-branched tree leaning over the wall. Inside, the packet's cord has started to fray where it's been rubbing. A tiny end has worked loose. Paper doesn't forgive rough handling, and neither do pressed petals. For a heartbeat, your mind tries to rush. Tie it fast, yank it tight, make it perfect. You breathe instead. You take a strip of cloth from your pouch, the same kind of simple strip that once pinned your sleeve back in the foundry, and you wrap it gently around the cord, thickening it, giving it grip, turning a weak point into something steadier, kinder, and far less likely to betray you. You fold the packet into an extra layer of cloth as well. Not sealed in paranoia, just protected with the calm competence you watched at the docks when water tried to steal into bundles. Cloth corners get tucked in. A knot is made, then checked, then made again with a different angle so it won't slip when you're tired later. You feel quietly satisfied, which is your new version of victory. The rain thins and stops as abruptly as it began, satisfied that it has at least tried. The air brightens. The road widens again, and you walk on with the packet safer, your breath slower, your body moving like it has been taught by river and garden and furnace. Ahead, the last view of Luoyang rises, roof lines layered behind walls, a faint thread of smoke curling from the foundry quarter, pale as a thought. Somewhere inside, clay molds are drying near low heat. Someone is checking a shutter crack before damp can creep into paper. Someone is skimming impurities from molten bronze with a motion so practiced it looks like kindness. Someone is lifting a peony bloom to inspect the underside of a leaf, deciding what to touch and what to leave alone. You don't wave. You don't need to. Your farewell is in the way you carry yourself now, careful, quiet, no wasted force. You turn your face toward the open road and let the city recede behind you without forcing your mind to forget it. The peony stain stays on your sleeve, faint gold catching morning light, and you let it stay, because some traces are not mess. They're proof you learned to pass through a place gently enough that it kept you, just a little, in return. The road keeps unspooling in front of you, and Luoyang becomes a softer shape behind your shoulder, like a lantern through fog. You don't need to grip that image. Let it float. Let it settle wherever your mind stores gentle things. Feel your breathing, slow in, slow out, like the river under a stone bridge, always moving, never in a hurry. The day's tensions can loosen now, the fear of wet paper, the fuss of fluttering cloth corners, the instinct to panic when a line of lanterns bunches up, the worry that one crack in bronze means the world is fragile. You saw how people handle it here. They don't shout at the problem. They notice. They adjust. They try again. And that is enough. Picture the peony quartz in the last light, petals heavy and calm, dew turning to beads, then to nothing. Picture the scholar's inkstone, water added one drop at a time until darkness becomes smooth. Picture the foundry glow, molten bronze settling into a mold and cooling into certainty, even after the damp tried to ruin it. Picture the lulled, carrying lantern reflections and your tired thoughts in the same current. Now let those pictures blur a little, the way your eyes blur when they finally stop searching. The packet of pressed petals rests safe and dry. The faint gold stain on your sleeve can stay. It doesn't need fixing. It's proof you were there, and you were careful. Your body is allowed to rest. Your jaw can unclench. Your shoulders can drop. If your mind tries to sprint ahead, let it. Then invite it back, gently, like calling a small animal into warm hands. The river sound fades. The lanterns dim. The city's air becomes a quiet hush around you. And you drift into sleep, very softly. End of story. Sweet dreams.